that was all by coincidence. It wasn't a style that I was planning to do. It just happened and I liked it. So
that was weird. They just dropped, they just stopped my stream, and that was it. I was drawing and they just dropped my stream. Oh my gosh, I don't know why they did it, but they did it, and it ain't fair, no way. It ain't fair. Why did they cut my stream? I don't know. I don't know why they cut my stream. Hi out by Mayor. They cut my stream and I don't know why. I don't know why. Oh wait, is it on? My mic on? Yeah. I don't know why they cut my stream. It made me mad. Wow, my drawings got bigger. I love it.
Kept that going for the rest of the painting.
Hi
and to be
again.
honest, it
I
makes
don't
a
know
lot
why
more
YouTube
sense
just
leaving the
ended my stream, but I'm back hopefully, and I'll keep monitoring the situation because I don't understand what happened. So I'm redrawing Swan's character because there's a bunch of videos. There's a bunch of videos that I have in mind that I want to do with her. Sorry, that I have to do with her, and I'm not happy with how she currently looks. So I'm redrawing her. Alright, so let's see. Go back to the thing. Oh, and I'm also watching YouTube videos. It's so backwards. YouTube videos.
back of the canvas showing through, or else I could have just painted on a regular white background. Also, how satisfying isn't it seeing the colors pop on this dark surface? It looks so good. And even if these paint markers are opaque, it still took a few coats to cover the dark background, especially with the lighter colors. I think I added like 5 layers of white, and I'm very happy that I had these paint markers with larger nibs, or else this would have taken me forever. It did also help that I didn't want solid layers of paint. I kind of wanted them to look a little splotchy, you know, so I didn't have to make perfect solid layers. I also noticed that the drying time of the paint, it is a lot slower on canvas than on paper, but someone actually mentioned on my previous paint marker video that they used a hair dryer to dry the paint quicker. So I tried that myself and it really turned out to be a lifesaver, or a time saver at least. Now I didn't have to worry about smudging the wet paint or wait for the paint to dry. I did still put my hands and arms in the wet paint anyway, but I just need to be messy when doing art. That is just how I am. Let me know, are any of you guys messy artists like I am, or do you keep things and yourself clean the whole time during the process? I don't get how you do it.
Is my Steven Universe thing coming true? Because it's that's it.
But yeah, I had so much fun with this painting. I had to actually force myself to take breaks sometimes to not overwork myself. It is definitely the most fun that I've had with art in a long time. It is something new, it is refreshing for me anyway. I don't know, I was just having a good time. So now that we talked about how much fun I had with the art, let's talk about how much I struggled with the art. No, not really. I didn't struggle a lot, but I did have a little problem with the flowers. I had to repaint a few of them several times. Good thing that the paint markers are opaque, so they are very easy to cover up with. And as I mentioned several times now, I'm going for a stylized look, and I haven't really drawn stylized flowers before, not a whole lot anyway, so I was struggling with how I wanted to paint them. Some of them I think turned out really
Did they
great,
cancel
some
my
of
stream
them
again?
not so much. The blue flowers are not my favorite, and next use some different shapes than just the ovals, but again, I'm doing it for practicing with paint markers. I'm not doing it for perfection. I'm definitely learning a lot from doing this piece though, and I already have some ideas and plans for the next painting. I actually have another black canvas, so I might try this again. So
somehow
yeah, the
your
flowers
message is
definitely
always
gave
being
me a
retracted.
challenge.
I
It
don't
took
know
the
what that
most
means,
time
but
to make,
it
and
says
I
it's
think what
retracted.
made it a little weird too was that in my initial sketch, I just made little blob flowers, but when resizing it to a larger format, the small little blobs will not be so small anymore, and I had to put a lot more detail. And I think that made it a little weird.
Alright, cool. Stream is still working. I don't know. I'm just right now. I'm just paranoid. I'm paranoid.
A lot more details into them to match the rest of the style of the painting. I wanted to keep it cohesive, but I had a lot of fun adding all the little leaves and blades of grass poking up between the flowers though, and I really love how it looks. Again, painting with these markers is so satisfying because they are so opaque and it just draws over painted areas super easily. I mean, that is just how acrylic paint works, but I don't know, it is still satisfying to see. And for once, I'm actually painting a black kitty. I thought it would be fitting to keep it the color as the canvas, and it also stands out a little more in all the pastel colors, but I'm still going over it a few times with black paint just to get rid of the sketch lines underneath and to give it the same matte texture look as the rest of the painting, because these paint markers dries matte, and I actually like that the cat is a little less detailed than the rest of the painting. It gives you something to rest your eyes on in this very, very busy painting. It adds a little bit of balance. And let me know if you would like to see more of this, more paint marker art on canvas, wood, paper, you name it, let me know. And finishing it up by painting the sides of the canvas with matte acrylic. It is a super cheap canvas, so it had some scratches on it. I don't know, it just looked a little rough, but adding the paint cleaned it up a bit and it made it look a little more neat. Yeah, here it is, out in the sunshine. I love how this turned out, and I love how much I enjoyed making it. Such a fun little project. And I hope you guys like it too, and that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Keep drawing the happy cats. Bye.
Bye. It's just emotions taking me over. That's this is the head. Swan, big head. Swoop. Gosh, I keep having to make her smaller so you can have room for her head, her hair, which is big and puffy. Let's see.
Hello, my name is Andrew. Welcome to my kitchen. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the question, do I need a $500 kitchen knife in my life?
Yes.
Clearly it's not a necessity, but it's actually something that I've been wondering for a long time. Not necessarily that price point, but I've been personally really interested in
Oh my god, I have to make
finally
a smaller
making
again.
kitchen knives for a while now, hoping to upgrade what I have in my home kitchen and wondering at what price point I would find most satisfying. Because you can get a great knife for less than $100, or you can get something really fantastic and custom made for like over $1,000. At $500, it's bound to be a very exciting knife. But do I want the stress day to day of having to use this thing that I could potentially break or ruin? Do I want that in my life?
Do you have to put a dollar again?
This is a Swissen Inox Onyaki 270 millimeter Kuritsuke, and it's actually like $470. And this was purchased at Foreign in New York City. If you're familiar with the Worth It show, there was an episode about knives, and Foreign was featured in the middle tier. I wasn't in that video, but I was actually behind the scenes filming and producing. Vincent, who I met at that time,
so like as my hair gets shorter, I'm making big ones.
And this knife was purchased by About to Eat. this isn't an ad or it wasn't given to us for free. So this will be sort of a product review, but not really a product review of this high-end knife that I've been now using for the last month at home. I'm going to share with you what that experience has been like. I also want to specify that I am definitely not an expert in knives. If you're
Yes, you're
interested in
supposed to go to
yourself, I
Rie,
encourage
not
you
you.
to reach out to an expert like Vincent.
Oh
But
my
I
god, I
wanted
love
to
how
share
big the
what
hair
I
looks.
think is the unique
Something seems
experience
wolfy.
of being a really interested amateur who hasn't already been there, done that with the thing I'm interested in, and dive into the deep end with something that I think I find very desirable and give you that first time impression. First, let me explain how I decided on this particular knife. This was the first knife I bought when I started getting really interested in cooking. It's an 8-inch
Oh,
Victorinox
that's cute.
chef's
I
knife.
look like a
You
little
often see these recommended
swoop
as
swoop.
being a great entry point. The next knife I got was this Mac Nikiri. This
You
was
making
given to
me
me
want
as
to
a
go and
gift.
buy expensive
It's
knife.
based
I
on
ain't
a
cooking that much.
traditional Japanese knife shape for
Why do I
cutting
love this
vegetables.
here?
It has
Swan
this
girl.
very flat
Swan
edge,
girl.
which encourages a push cutting
Like
style.
this
When you
make
have
it
even a
pop.
little bit of forward motion, it just amplifies the cutting potential of whatever knife you're using. It is really the only way that I can cut things now. And then there's this knife. This is a Swissen high carbon petty knife that I actually purchased at Corin after that Worth It knife shoot. And it had a lot of unique features that I wanted to try out for the first time. It's carbon steel, which is not stainless. Acidic foods will discolor it slightly. Generally speaking, carbon steel can get much harder, so it gets a very sharp edge and then can hold that edge for much longer. It also has an asymmetric bevel, so at the very edge, there's slightly more slant on one side than the other. It's a 70-30 ratio.
The
And I thought that this would
difference
just be, you know,
is
kind of a
wow.
fun souvenir, something that I used to keep through until I
Wow.
got my big boy knife.
Wow.
But it's really now my favorite, and I'm kind of convinced it's the
I
only
thought my
knife
art didn't change that
it's
much.
super
Wow.
versatile. Even for tasks where a larger knife would be more suitable, I find myself reaching for this one, just because the quality of the steel makes it a really enjoyable experience. In fact, when I first spoke to Vincent about this video, the first recommendation he had was, oh, have you tried a petty knife? So onto the Gritsuke. I mainly wanted something that was going to be longer than any of my other knives, because I felt like I was missing the ability to slice large things nicely. But I also wanted something that was versatile and could be used every day to do most tasks. And I learned from Vincent that this particular knife is sort of a hybrid of a traditional shape with some modern attributes that make it a little more versatile. And I'll get into more detail on those later. I was also personally
hello,
really
Miss So.
interested
Wow,
in a
that's a
knife
cool
shape that
name,
was
Miss
a
So.
little bit less typical. Both because
Welcome
I
to
wanted
Team
the
Luckily.
opportunity to try something new, and because I honestly just find the shape very satisfying. And I think you can't overlook that when making this sort of purchase. There's that intangible want factor. Just its shape alone gives you satisfaction. My first impressions upon receiving the knife, so cool. Unboxing something that you're excited for will never get old. There's this inexplicable weak feeling that your hands get when you're holding something for the first time that you're very excited for. I was also surprised that it didn't feel quite as large as I thought it would, given the measurement. 270 millimeters seems to be the upper limit for knives that are termed multi-purpose chef's knives. I was a little worried when making the decision that it would be unwieldy and too niche to use every day, but it's surprisingly comfortable, and I think it's because it's a very lightweight knife. It's very thin, and it's actually lighter weight than the 8-inch Victorinox knife. And when you have it in a pinch grip, where your hand is a little bit further up the blade, it feels very comfortable and manageable to use. There are also lots of subtle quality things about the knife's construction, like the way that the top of the knife and back behind the heel are rounded, so it's more comfortable to grip.
Really like
This is something that's
shapes.
not on my other knives. There's also the traditionally shaped handle, which is satisfyingly thick. It's quite a bit larger than even the Victorinox handle, which I think balances out the overall length.
Oh crap!
So how was it to use every day? I'll admit that at first it was a bit
Hi.
awkward. I think that's just because I wasn't used to the
Hi,
length
dead
and
channel.
where my arm would naturally
Why are people
go if
so
I was
creative
using
with names?
a smaller
I'm
knife.
stuck with
I just
names.
had to adjust that muscle memory. I also got a new cutting board that's much larger, which was honestly overdue for me. Aside from the knife purchase, this is just something I needed. But I opted for one that's this synthetic rubber material. And the advantage of this rubber is that it's much softer on the knife's edge, so your knives should stay sharper for longer. About the sharpness, it is disgustingly sharp, almost disconcertingly sharp. It has a feeling of slipping through food rather than cutting it. And it immediately made me feel like I was
You may
better
cut
at
your finger.
cutting than I think I actually am. And when I went back to some of my older knives for comparison, my movements instantly felt less graceful. About the steel. This knife is made from a really high-end Swedish stain-resistant steel, and that's one of these modern attributes that makes it a little bit more of a hybrid and a little bit more friendly for everyday use. So how useful was it? It's actually very useful every day. But there is one caveat that I'll get to in a second. The shape turned out to be great.
Alright,
Vincent informed
that's
me
the
that
first
the
one.
Kuritsuke shape combines the virtues of a slicing knife with one that can also handle vegetables. So I can still employ that push cutting style that I've
So
become really
now
fond of.
the next one
It's
too.
also interesting that you can essentially fit
Oh, hello, Slim Jim Longfoot. Oh, you guys so creative with names. Like, seriously, I suck at names. Hello again, Art with Mihawk. Mohawk. Kool-Aid. So, good. We're just taken from the old file. So, this is present this one, and present this one too.
And it is so satisfying to use. I think onions quickly became my favorite thing to cut. And
Edit,
what can be a really
transform,
tedious task
rotate,
turned into something that was just so
and
enjoyable to do.
Okay.
I imagine that this is what it's like if you drive to the supermarket in a Porsche. You know, I'm not a professional race car driver, but does that mean I should be excluded from one of the tactile pleasures that's available out there in the world? The caveat to
I don't know why they took it down. It was I was playing fine and I thought I was online and then something didn't feel right. So and I looked, they just dropped the vid. I don't know why. I was given no explanation.
And sometimes I just don't want to deal with that.
Alright, so this one now is the same face. So this can just go up. Oh crap.
And can make the knife seem like it's not worth the trouble. Like you're never gonna leave it at the bottom of your sink to be washed later. Or you should really avoid any hard products, even small bones in a chicken, because you run the risk of chipping that very fine edge. So that brings us back to the question: do I need this expensive knife in my life? Is it worth the trouble? I think there is something nice about having a tool that demands more of your focus. For me, it becomes a decision. Like, okay, where are your eyes, Swan? I'm gonna let cooking become this meditative moment. Like the sort of cooking you do on a
I don't
Sunday
know why.
afternoon.
They just seriously she looks so weird with her eyes.
Let it unfold. Your attention can be just on this one thing, and it's very satisfying because this thing is imbued with your personal preferences and experiences, and it becomes better as you use it more and become more familiar with it. So for me, yeah, I think I need this knife in my life. And one recommendation that I'm now very confident in making is that if you're now interested in knives and haven't experienced a higher end steel before, you should look at a petty knife, which I now just love my petty knife even more. So that's my knife journey. If there's some other product category you'd like us to explore, please let us know in the comments. But otherwise, thanks for watching.
My dad never knew his father. In 1957, when he was 31 years old, he died in a freak accident. My dad was just 3 at the time, and so he grew up never knowing the man who helped bring him into the world. The only piece of him that he has, and as far as I know, the only piece he's ever seen.
And 3 years doing digital art. It's totally different. I thought digital art would have been easy because I could draw with my hands, but like, no. Well, let's see. Hands up, so hands up, hands up. Over me, somebody come help me. Oh, wait, do this stuff. Hands up, Swan.
Is an Air Force portrait that he keeps on his dresser. You may remember my dad from a video last year where I made a recreation of a hot sauce that he used to sell that was stolen from him. And while I was digging through old photos and documents to do some research in order to make that video, I came across something. A box of 8mm film labeled Beverly Children. Beverly was my dad's name at birth, but it was also his father's name. And upon close inspection of one of the reels, a man can be seen who looks remarkably like my father. He's holding a child, presumably either my dad or his brother. And I'm almost certain my dad has never seen this footage. So today, I want to try and give him a look at his father for the first time in his life. Thankfully, the film is already developed. It would be nearly impossible to develop 70-year-old film, especially stuff that hasn't been well stored like this hasn't been. But aside from looking at the frames one by one, I don't really have a great way to view what's on these reels. So I'm taking them to a local processor to see if I can get them digitized. One of the reels is in a bit better condition than the other, but I'm hopeful we can get something out of both. They said the footage is going to take about a week to process, so in the meantime, I want to learn a little bit more about my grandfather, or at least whatever my dad can tell me.
He was in the Air Force. He was a member of the Jolly Rogers.
Happy birthday, McLean. Oh wow, Kathleen McCulloch. Oh my gosh, my brain just joined your name together. Have a fun birthday. Wait, I'm doing lockdown.
He was like a fog. I remember our house distinctly. We all
Well, have fun.
It was in the Korean War. When he got out of the Air Force, he got tons of job offers in Memphis, and he refused all jobs. He wanted to go to Florida after the war. He just wanted to be a bartender in Florida for a year or two until he settled down.
Okay, that is way too long.
Yeah, especially being a gunner pilot, 22 missions, knowing where you were doing with your bullets. The Jolly Rogers made a book, and it had the whole crew in the book. It was a picture book. My father, Dee Dee, threw it away. All the pictures of him I had, that's the memories I have, only going, oh my God, this is him, this is what he did. And what a tragedy. I'd have that book forever. When he drowned, I remember standing outside of a motel at night. I'll never forget the fluorescent lights in the old 1950s motel, and I had my grandmother standing there. I must have known that they were looking for my father. And I remember finding out about his death when I was back home in Memphis. I was sitting in the living room floor, 4 years old, and the maid was there, and she was ironing.
The maid?
And all of a sudden, the front door swings open, and this neighborhood boy runs in and goes, your daddy's dead, your daddy's dead, your daddy's dead. And that's how I found out. The maid grabbed him and threw him out the front door. That's a distinct memory.
You have a
Not
maid?
many people drown water skiing, but I'm sure that he wasn't wearing a life preserver, and I'm sure they'd been all drinking. And I'm sure he was driving was wasted, because that's him. He was that party boy. My mom was there, Betty Jo, her best friend, with Bob. We were only in Memphis for probably another year or two at the most. We moved to Atlanta. So yeah, I don't have a lot of memories. I wish I did. It's unfortunate. I never got to know it.
Why is this looking so wrong?
Oh my goodness.
That's creepy looking.
He looks so much like my dad.
I couldn't have hoped for anything better than this. So now I have to drive to Vermont to
Don't
show
you
it to him.
point
I know
those
this drive
dirty
is
green
going to
sausages
be
at
filled with nervous anticipation because I truly don't know how he's going to react to this. I just really hope it makes him happy.
Well, thank you, Nicole Lovett. And welcome to the stream.
Oh my God.
Why are my fingers are sausage fingers?
Oh my God, that's my father.
Why are hands?
How'd you have this made? Oh God.
Fingers are so hard, especially since they're like wrong
Video I've ever
shapes.
seen of him. Guys walking down, there's Vero Beach. He says, come on. This is the year before he died. water or he drowned. He's got a cigarette. He's always burning me with it.
What?
We're opening up presents, it looks like.
You're 4.
Camera hog, that must be my brother. Oh, there's my mother. What a great picture of my mother. She was so lovely. Can't believe he died a year from this. He's a happy man. Life would have been so different.
Would it? He sunlights and us.
Never seen it. I've never seen it. Pretty well choked up right now. This is where we went every year. Even after he died, we went until I was probably 15, 16.
Look how much difference it is. I'm so...
It's so great having this. I mean, I can't.
It's really hard to think your art's changed.
First time. Thank you, Flora. That's the nicest thing.
But...
I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe they all have that one picture of him upstairs. I'm amazed.
It's changed a lot. Look how cute Swan looks. Oh my gosh.
It's like he's real. I mean, he's alive, he's real, and knowing that that's how far away from his death. And now I have a vivid picture of my father right now. See, it's right in front of me. I can see him. I'll see him forever now.
Oh. Hello, Art. I didn't see that one there. Welcome. Oh, Aria A. So I even started doing Twitch randomly. I haven't got my schedule
It's your girl Merle, and today we're back with another vegan substitute.
Oh.
Today we're going to be making something you all sent to me. Vegan eel, or unagi, out
So
of
hands up
potatoes.
Chu is with
That's
the
right.
eyes.
I want to give a shout out to the original video because this is where the idea was inspired. Also, this entire Instagram page is just packed full of delicious vegan recipes. So, without further ado, let's get right on into cooking.
Potato
time.
a horror movie. Oh shoot, oh shoot.
First thing we're going to do is peel our potatoes. But what the potato is going to do is it's going to help to bind
copy it
the
first.
unagi. I'm using russet potatoes because that is what she recommended in the recipe. Okay, now that we've got our potatoes all peeled up, I'm going to quickly weigh them because the recipe was in ounces. U.S. metric system. Getting a taste of our own medicine is what you're witnessing. Now we're going to slicey-dicey our potatoes up into some little cubes. We're going to get cubular. Not really, we're going to get cubular. You don't even need to boil these because russet potatoes are a bit softer. I'm going to put it in my little blender here. No, I can't drop the accent. I can't help myself. Not me! Not Hermione! You! Liquefy!
No, I copy her.
Alright, now we are going to drain the liquid out of our potato puree. You can use cheesecloth, you can use paper towels if you want, you can use a fine messy sieve. Now we're going to work with our tofu. We've got some firm tofu, and I'm going to press it. So now we're going to combine our dry tofu and our dry potato puree together. Now we're going to add a little bit of salt. We're going to add some pepper. We're going to add just a little bit of soy sauce. And then finally we're going to add in some cornstarch and mix this up.
Because I just remember the shape of the head.
The next step is for us to make our cornstarch slurry. And it's just a tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of water. This cornstarch slurry is going to act as our glue. Now we're going to take our nori sheet and we're going to split it in half. Then we're going to brush some of our cornstarch slurry on there. We're going to take a quarter of our mixture here and we're going to just press that on there.
That's
Alright, and then we're going to divide this a little bit in half, make a little mark in the middle there. Alright, so I've tried making 2 of these now, and I'm not going to lie, they're looking pretty lumpy. They do not look as beautiful as hers. So I'm going to try to blend up the rest of the mixture just to see if I can get the lumps out of the tofu.
merge it.
By doing that, it looks significantly smoother. Feel better about that. And I'm going to transfer this now over the stove.
Hungry. Oh yeah.
Flip it on there.
So
Now, for our sauce, we're going to need a 1/4 cup of mirin, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of sugar, a 1/4 cup of kombu dashi, and 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. We're going to bring all the ingredients to a boil, and then we're going to lower the heat. We want the sugar to be completely dissolved. Basically, you just want to cook this down until the sauce is showing large bubbles. Alright, now it's the moment of truth. It does not look as pretty as hers, but that's okay. I'm still hopeful that it's going to taste delicious.
hello, Tim Al. Hi.
Man, that sauce is kicking. Holy moly. The nori adds a nice seaweed ocean flavor. The actual potato tofu mixture doesn't lend much flavor. Way to make eel. It still crumbles in your mouth like tofu and potato would. It does hold up with the cornstarch more than I expected it to, but I don't think this would fool anyone into thinking it tasted like eel. This is really good. Thank you, Will. This is a delicious recipe. I hope you all enjoyed this. If there's anything else you'd like me to make, please send it my way. I'll probably make it.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From your website to your online shop, build a beautiful online presence with Squarespace. Welcome to yet another episode of I bought this in Japan in 2020 and I'm just now using it for the first time. Today we're going to be using these pencils I found that just looked really interesting because they're called dermatograph pencils and it says they're used for glass, metal, and plastics. I found that really interesting because glass, metal, and plastic isn't something I normally draw on. Normally I draw on, paper, like
Looking up
people do.
expressions.
Here's our pencils. Go ahead and put these in a lovely rainbow order, of course. Now, I did try to grab all the colors, but apparently I missed the black. So we don't have a black pencil, which is fine.
Which is
All right,
weird.
let's go ahead and give these a little
I
swatch.
should
See how
have
you feel.
started this after not eating.
Very smooth. I do like that. I don't know that I've ever used oil-based pencils. Who knows? Just look how smooth they are. They go down so flat. There is absolutely no texture in these pencils. I do love that. And our white, look at it. Or
You
don't,
don't
because
like
you literally
texture?
can't.
No texture.
Okay, so let's try to blend them together and create a rainbow. Yeah, not bad. That was a fun little experiment. Now the true
Look at this
experiment
baby.
comes in if I put down a yellow circle right here. Just fill it up. So I've got this piece of plastic here, and I'm just going to draw various faces on it. Let's see. Okay, I have to be honest, I'm not quite sold with using them on plastic. It just didn't seem like they, went on very well. Here's our smiley face. Here's our mischievous face. As you can see, it's a little crummy. It is cute though. Aw, I'm gonna look over here. I'm gonna look over there. I'm gonna look at little marks. Maybe not so much used for, an illustration. Actually, one last thing. I did read that white was good for blending. Is this true? I mean, it's white, so it's kind of making it lighter. So I'm gonna give that one. I'm gonna give that one a big fat no. That's enough playing around. Let's create some art with these pencils. Wait, hold on. I read that because the name of these pencils is dermatograph, meaning skin. I heard that you could write on your skin. Let's just see what happens. I mean, can you? Well,
It's a heart, but it's very hard to see. Anyways, okay, back to the art. So I wasn't sure how many of you have actually seen this sort of paper peel away sharpening type of pencil, so I thought I would give a demonstration. Basically, the pencil is wrapped in a piece of paper and you tear away by pulling away at the string. It tears the paper and you unravel your pencil. It's pretty simple, it's really cool, kind of fun, but I do find myself wanting to sharpen them anyways, so I'm not really sure the benefit. Either way, you're using paper, you're using wood. Is there a benefit? I have no idea. I assume so you don't make a mess sharpening and having all of these little shreds, but I end up sharpening it anyway, so I don't know. Maybe not for me. Anyways, let's start drawing. Today's doodle is going to be rather simple. I was just kind of getting a feel for these pencils, and even though I felt like they were supposed to be used on something else rather than paper, because, you know, they're advertised as being used on plastic and metal and glass and stuff, I just wasn't vibing with that, so here we are, sketching a couple of cats being cute. One cat's throwing a fish in its mouth. It's being followed by a little cat, very cute. It's going to be very colorful. I'm excited to work on it. But before we do, I do want to talk to you guys about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace, who are once again supporting my channel. They're the best, and I absolutely love my website using Squarespace. Just look at it. I've got this amazing gallery where I can display all of my art. It's got automatic image scaling, easy importing. You can connect all of your social media, keep everything in one place. I love that. I can also sell my art, sell my merch. In my very own shop, everything is so easy that I've never had to contact their 24/7 email support. Don't believe me? I guess you're just going to have to sign up yourself. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial when you're ready to launch. Go to squarespace.com/CaseyGolden to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Let's get to coloring our little kitties. These colored pencils are so bright and so colorful. I honestly felt like I was going back to the year of the crayon. Even though I wasn't using crayons, it definitely felt like I was using crayons again. They were bright, they were colorful, they were fun. They made me feel like a kid again while using them. A lot of crumbs came off of them as I used them, which was kind of annoying. I did look into these pencils before I used them because, you know, I like to be informed before I use an art supply. I want to know what I'm getting into, how to use them, despite honestly still not really knowing how to use them, and I kind of feel like I used them wrong. I read that these were oil-based colored pencils, but I've also read that they were wax-based, so I guess they're oily wax pencils. I also just felt like I said, I didn't feel like they wrote on plastic or glass or anything that well, and even though these were with other pencils and things, and they are very colorful and they look very bright and fun, I kind of got the vibe that these pencils weren't actually meant for doing like art projects or anything crafty or fun or illustrative. I think maybe they were meant for maybe you were doing a craft of some sort, but you need to like mark where to cut something or where to put something, so you have these pencils. I would love you guys' input on these. I did a lot of research, but I swear this is just like when I made my acrylic gouache video. I did so much research. Half the websites I looked at called them gouache, the other half called them acrylic. You guys called them acrylic. Turns out they're actually gouache, just acrylic-based gouache. So these pencils, I'm really not sure what to make of them. I feel like they were meant for other things, yet here I am using them on paper. They were very smooth and buttery. I absolutely loved using them on paper. I loved the way that I was able to use them lineless. They did a little bit of smudging, which I wasn't super happy with when it came to the edge of the characters. There's a lot of blue mixed in with the yellow. Of course, I'm not going to like that too much, but I really did like the edge of the characters and how they're kind of fuzzy between the yellow and the blue. It's not the most perfect flat edge, but it's kind of fuzzy. There's definitely enough contrast between the two colors, yellow and blue, to make sure that the characters are popping off. I think all of these colors actually have really great contrast. They're all very different from each other. In fact, I kind of feel like I could put any of these colors except maybe the dark one the dark blue and the dark green. Those need a little bit of separation because they are very similar in tone. But all of these pencils, I felt so confident working with them in a lineless style, so I was actually really excited, especially, like I said, they had this sort of soft, fuzzy edge to them that I really liked. It just has this different look and feel that I feel like I haven't really experimented much when it came to illustration and trying different art supplies. These have that soft edge. I'm normally used to a more hard edge. Even with crayons, I can't get a nice, smooth edge like I would like with crayons, but they also don't have this softness that these pencils do, so I really did enjoy that. The characters, even though they're not perfect, there's a lot of smudging, there's a lot of mixing of colors, but they're soft, and I like that. I also really enjoy the way they blended. Maybe it's because they are oil-based, so they kind of blend in such a way. But particularly the rosy cheek of the little cat, it's just so perfectly blushy, and I love it. Anyways, I had to throw in a rainbow because it reminded me of crayons, colorful, loved it. And overall, kind of felt like these were a little difficult to deal with. The sharpening wasn't the most fun. I do like peeling away the paper. Something about that is a fun little novelty. But overall, I would like to know you guys' input if you've ever used this art supply before. What is it used for? I'm still confused. Anyways, it was really fun playing around with them. So another art supply played around with. Once again, thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You need a website, check them out. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
It looks so good.
Alright, so I'm in my cart for the first time, thought, I'll just find a neat space to casually talk, right? So the thing is this week's vlog is going to be short because I'm running around doing a bunch of other things. This week I just want to talk about this thing that I'm focusing on, which is called the law of 100s. Week 6, it's day 41, and guess what? I've not been vlogging for the past 2 weeks because I was busy with other things. As the chief honey scout of your team, so ever since I finished the One Piece illustration, the first half of the One Piece illustration, and I just got busy with like personal work, and it just that took some time, so like took some days off. I was still drawing every day, and all of a sudden, right, I got this itch to paint stuff and start painting things on Procreate. Start painting like faces on Procreate, and all of a sudden, like, this is fun. So I thought, you know what, instead of trying to do multiple things, right, during this 100 days sketching, right, just focusing on one thing and developing my skill of painting. So I've been painting portraits for the past week or so, portraits of faces and things like that for references, getting my painting skills up. That's what I've been doing. I gotta tell you, it's been pretty long fun. Oh, in other news, guess who showed up to the studio? Finally, look at this. Ravi, Sashi. Hi, so. Yeah, we're back.
Oh, so that's why I got it.
See, we're wearing masks, social distancing. I'm social distancing. Look at this. 10 feet away. We're socially distancing. But we were following all the government rules and regulations. We're doing this properly, and everyone's vaccinated. So, yeah, we're good to go. So now the people are starting to come back. Kapil and Emmanuel, by the way, are still at home. And, anyways, people are starting to come back, get back to work, proper work, and, I can get back to painting. So that's the plan for today. Paint stuff. Paint another portrait. Pretty simple. And also play Monopoly. We're going to socially distance ourselves and play. I don't know how we're going to do that, but yeah. There are risks. What can you take every precaution? And after that, you got to live your life something. Do the best you can and live life. So here's how I paint things, right? So I have these couple of boards on Pinterest. By the way, on Pinterest, I've collected these reference images from Pinterest, right? All these reference images. And when I just take one and start painting that thing and drawing that. I also have another book called Painting, which is sort of, collecting some of my favorite painters' work, right? Sort of people who have very painterly styles, right? So I just collect those things right here. All these things are public, by the way. Check it out. I really like this style, right? So look at this. Who's this by? Ashline Art. If you look at this, it's got the line work, and at the same time, it seems semi-realistic. It's nice, and it's something I can afford for. I also like Max Brecke's work. Fantastic influence. This guy is amazing. And also, I love the work of Sam Arts. This guy is probably what got me. Street Fighter 2.
I took off the mic when I took a break. Hey Danielle, you made it! Yay! Every time I take a break, I check off the mic so you won't be bombarded with all the noises in the background. Right now I'm watching the latest Coronet Crew video of them. So. Just throw it on knife. Okay. I just always take on the mic when I take a break.
You know, if Chuck Norris
And I forgot to put it back on.
Like a karate champion, I don't think the show would have worked. I think he needed a little bit of that, like, cred, the street cred. Like,
so the
arms. Like, okay, I'll tune in for the fights.
That's good now, but maybe I should try.
So if you're watching this video, chances are you enjoy learning new things about life and perhaps filmmaking. Well, thanks to the online learning community of Skillshare, there are thousands of classes that you can choose from to expand your mental horizons. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning that there's no ads around there. They're always launching new premium classes as well. You can learn everything from cooking to After Effects, any type of 3D program, drone flying, photography. For instance, there is a productivity masterclass from Ali Abdal. This class is called Principles and Tools to Boost Your Productivity. I mean, this dude's a doctor, he runs a YouTube channel, a podcast, he does a whole bunch of stuff, and yet he's able to do it all while maintaining his social life. I'm always wanting to do more things in life, and it's hard to fit all of that into my time. So maybe a little bit of productivity learning will go a long way. Skillshare actually has these live courses as well, so you can work alongside fellow members as a teacher live streams their course to you. For less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, he can maybe throw some of the money that he went towards like a streaming platform and more towards something that will actually improve your brain. So Kevin, get off that toilet and...
So one thing I've realized with me with like interests, they come in waves. So I was all for books. I was like, yeah, books. And now I don't want no books. I know it will come back around again, so I can't force myself to read. But when that wave come back, I'm reading everything. But there's a latest Lisa Claypa's books. I want it. There's a new series that I found out about black love, and for once it's black on black love and not black and white or black and Asian, which it has no problem with that. But the thing is, it's really weird that I'm more accustomed with black and white love and black and Asian love than black and black love. I'm black. I live around black people. I'm supposed to be used to black and black love. Damn. So if you guys have any suggestions for black and black books, I would love that. I would love it. Because Book Talk on TikTok has taught me they exist. And they're healthy black love. Okay, apparently I'm still reading because I'm really excited about books, but I don't have the need to read books right now.
Sign up for Skillshare.com. Click that link in the description. The first 1,000 people to click the link will get an entire month for free to Skillshare Premium.
This expression
That's a pretty good deal if I don't say so myself.
In tiny arms,
that was fun watching all this
kind of energy.
It's been a while since I just sat down and watched this. I know. That's actually one of my favorite things about the show is just sitting down and watching. Yeah, right. Revisiting all the scenes, man. If you guys want to check out more of Malai's work, follow him on Instagram. It's at Malai the Stunt Guy, or on YouTube, which is just simply Malai Kim as his channel. We'll have links in the description below. He also, thank you also for joining us as well. You guys can follow me on
I read some hood, what do you call it? Hood eroticas. I literally read some hood eroticas, and I was like, that was the first time I ever heard such explicit language to express the woman's flower and the man's eggplant. I was a teenager when my friend loaned me this book. No wait, my mom got a box of books from a friend because she realized I like to read, And in that box was a hood-erotic book. My God. My God. The explicit words that were used in that book. It was 3 stories. It was 3 girlfriends, like 3 friends who are girls, and their mans who were from the hood. And I hated those men. I hated them so much. They were all assholes. But the things they could do with their eggplants. Okay, I'm done. Stop it. I'm done talking about that. Things they could do.
Alright, dudes, thank you. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Understand why these girls were stupid. Okay, I'm done. Oh gosh, I touched these glasses. Let me try. Okay. I like you, but right now I need videos where people talk. What are you heard?
I love Belizean food. I went to Belize. I had Belizean food. It's delicious. My girlfriend's Belizean, so I've got an inside scoop of all things Belizean food. But I never made it before. And she loves Puerto Rican food. So I decided me and her will have a couple swap food challenge. She makes a Puerto Rican dish of my choosing with no help from me, and I make a Belizean dish of her choosing, where she doesn't help me at all. We're only going off recipes, and at the end, we try them, we taste them, we're honest, and see who's the best at making each other's country's food. So I love Puerto Rican food, and Eli has challenged me to make a Puerto Rican dish. I'm not afraid. I can do this. I feel really confident. I'm not too worried about it. But my biggest fear is she doesn't take criticism really well. So what I'm worried about though is Eli. Is he gonna get the flavors right? Is the chicken gonna be cooked through? I'm not super judgy. I don't mind if we just need to add a little bit of salt afterwards. I'm worried this chicken's not gonna be cooked. The dish you're going to be making is a shrimp mofongo. We can do it. You had mofongo before, so you have an idea of it. Okay. And you're gonna be making Belizean stew chicken with coconut rice. We got the plátano here.
Plátano.
I'm gonna look at the recipe, but she's talking all this mess about how I don't know how to season. I'm too much of a stickler in the book, so I'm just gonna take a chance. I'm gonna season with my heart.
Alright, so let's see. After Shy Swan, I done this sheepish Swan. Oh, should we do Swan and Bob? Where's my somebody Swan and Bob? Okay, that's terrifying. Swan and Bob. Okay.
It's that for we chicken. Hey. Okay, I'm getting started on my rice. The recipe says
and this one
in a pot. Well, these things. But it's 2021, y'all. So we have a rice cooker. That is right.
Frustrated Swan.
Work smarter.
Let's go with frustrated Swan. Why was I making this so hard in my head? In my head, this was going to take forever. But I'm breezing through the sketch. And the sketch, for me, the sketch part is the hard part to do.
Did you watch the chicken first? Yes, I watched the chicken first. I feel like you're lying.
He's lying.
You
You washed the chicken. Wash the chicken.
How beautiful that is.
I don't understand people who don't wash. Wash the chicken.
Didn't wash the chicken.
Thank you.
And now you're touching the raw chicken with your hands.
How am I supposed to do it?
Wash the chicken.
You already had my rice. It's not done yet. Let it finish. Why are you eating my rice? Stay away from the rice. Stay away from the rice. Oh, I guess it's your own.
You look so cute. I mean,
just over my shoulder, looking in disappointment, like you're literally on my ass this whole time.
Learning from you.
Learning from me.
You got different perspectives.
You were like sweating right now. Next, all I have to do is let the chicken simmer, and the juices out. My rice is already done. So yeah, now it's just waiting.
still holds his hand. I don't know why that song called my head. That was so trippy.
There's a lot. I don't like cilantro, so it's gonna be cilantro light.
What is your favorite thing about Belize?
The rum and the fish.
Wrong. It's me.
Oh God.
Alright, let's see some frustrated expressions.
Or the rice by itself, which is not
I don't like these faces.
No, I'm surprised.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Like, actually surprised by this.
It's really good. It's, like I said, the color's there. It's vibrant.
It's really good.
Yeah. I kind of figured it was going to be good after, like, smelling. Like,
Yep.
the smells are there. I was like, damn, this is going to, like, do a pretty good job. Which, I can't say that I'm losing either way.
You're not.
Just maybe for
I can't believe it just tastes so good.
Excuse me. Alright, I found my I found my expressions. Yes, sweetie. Look one there. Look the next one, yeah. I'm gonna bring it from mom. Oh, you want me to put it on there? Alright. Put it on my lap.
It's stuck.
No, wrong foot. Next foot. Next foot. No, the next foot. This one.
Huh?
Yeah. That's right. This foot gets so big. I'm used to it already. Alright. Yes, kiss. Okay, what area is that? That mushroom. Oh no, you go walk with mama, right? Have fun. Auntie doing something, okay?
This cat just shows up.
Yeah, go walk with mama.
There's always been stray cats around.
Speedy, auntie doing something.
Looks like you're in our
Hola, Imalia Cian. Hola.
He was very shy at first.
Oh no, go with mama.
The next day I saw him at work again.
He's so cute. Oh, it's been hour and a half.
So
Whoa.
I brought him a couple tins of cat food.
And I've done like how much sketches? A lot?
First we would leave the food, so
But not really, because I just using the same base.
then he wanted to eat his lunch right by.
Smarter, not harder. Except for this one.
I decided to start calling him Paul. He started meeting me every day for lunch breaks. It's nice to have a
So
lunch
let's
partner.
use this body base. You
Then
want
he
my
started
body,
saying,
you need my body,
even
you
after all
want my
this
body,
food was
yeah.
gone, when he jumped into my lap for the first time, it really surprised me. So I tried to pet him. He snuggled right in.
He's like, we
He became my work partner, always following me around the shop. I thought this is when I could bring him home.
What's that?
You say, take
Come
me
in with me. Yeah?
He seemed keen on getting in the car to come for a ride. But once he was inside my house, he was not liking it.
Look how fluffy her hair is. I'm like,
Hey, Ben.
why are your hair fluffy?
Hello? It's been 2 years now. I come in and feed him every day when I drive up.
Okay, wait, this could be our next expression. Like, I don't know.
And he's so comfortable now, he'll take his naps on my lap.
Oh, come on. I just want to copy you. Gee.
Yeah, I follow you now. It's great to have him waiting every morning. Everyone in the office loves Paul just as much as me, but they spend their lunch breaks giving him cuddles. He's home when he's here. He's the biggest part of our work family.
Accidentally in love with this pose. Can you tell I just watched Shrek for the first time in years? What's the story? What call me, baby? I'm in love. Ooh. Kendall, could take me. How did you get this shrug? Shrug emoji, like shrug.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are y'all? I have taken up black coffee again, don't ask. It's been years since I've had black coffee on a regular basis. I kind of love it because I forgot what it meant to be energized, but also I'm getting those good old dehydration headaches that I'm recovering. So keeping water on standby. It's fine. Nothing to be concerned about. It's cool. Tastes like burnt. Hello. Hi. Welcome. Whatever. Hello. It's Kendo here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here,
What's up,
what's
Hope Biscuit?
Happy Saturday. If you don't know what Saturday is when I do a little something on my channel called Bad Movies and a Beat, series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting my makeup on. This video is sponsored by Skillshare, the leading online creative community. Thousands of inspiring classes, Skillshare allows you to explore new skills, develop existing ones, and get lost in endless creativity. From film, creative writing, music, to web development, Skillshare has you covered with videos that can propel your creative passions forward. On a personal note, just yesterday I was telling my therapist that I need to get better at more efficiently doing my job as a creative because, I'm a wee bit chaotic, a controlled chaos, Capricorn, Aries, gang. And when I saw the class Productivity for Creatives, Build a System That Brings Out Your Best by Thomas Frank, I said, in this fate, is this a sign? Let's go, Thomas. Teach me how to not be a mess and get all my creative work done. Bless you and your work, Thomas. And my subscribers to figure out all that Skillshare has to offer. Because for the first 1,000 people that click on the link below, you get a 1-month free trial. So hurry and secure your chance to explore your creativity today. Big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and let's get into the debauchery. Last week, I was still stuck in the pit that is Passionflix. I'm not doing another Passionflix, but I was in the pit of Passionflix as we look at another movie from that god-awful cesspool called Wicked, and I couldn't ignore it because it was their first, delving into the supernatural, and, girl, a hot mess, a hot pile of boo-boo. So if you haven't seen that video, feel free to check it out above, or you can check it out in the Bad Movies and a Beat playlist. Okay, so this week we're returning to the Tyler Perry universe. Ever since I made my video, at this point over a year ago, about A Fall from Grace, I've had so many people, more than any other Tyler Perry film that's ever been recommended to me, everyone wanted me to talk about Acrimony, 2018, Taraji P. Henson playing another mad black woman who's done wrong by another dark-skinned black man. There's also discussion of mortgages or something at some point. The very, tropey stuff from Tyler Perry. Acrimony is a 2018 drama thriller that, upon its release, was quickly rejected by the arbiters of taste and audiences alike.
I hate that
referred to
movie.
as, quote, trash. And I find that perplexing in the sense that all Tyler Perry movies so the one to rise above them all and be the one that everyone's
The
is Tyler Perry
problem
trash?
with Acrimony is that she did a lot of stupidness for no reason, and he didn't even try. I was mad. I don't know why I was mad. That movie made me mad. Did anybody watch Tyler Perry's Acrimony and just get frustrated and so mad that Taraji was just mad for no reason?
I know, you think I'm joking.
That she had a good reason to be mad, but she did a lot of stupid things for no reason. She married him. Why did I marry him? I don't know why. And it just went to that. Why did I ram the car into his trailer? I don't know why. I just did it, and that's the end of the story. That's the whole plot line. She just did a lot of stuff because she don't know why. God, that movie made me so mad. My niece was like, I'm never asking you to watch a movie with me again. She didn't say it, but she hasn't asked me to watch a movie with her.
We gotta break down. Well, Acrimony is actually not trash. It's actually a decent
trash.
movie, okay? Now, like I even said in the Fall from Grace movie, I do find Tyler Perry to be quite the menace. He's incredibly egotistical in a lot of things, but I feel like we have other evidence of that than this movie is my point. I feel like he's done a lot of shit, but this movie isn't the most egregious of all of the crappy movies that he's made. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to go on record that not sarcastic, I think it's like a really sophisticated, is that the word I'm looking for? Sophisticatedly campy and cathartic melodrama. Yeah, I'm being that bitch today. I'm being that annoying person. Y'all just don't see the genius. Like I alluded to before, I found it quite confusing, actually, that people hated this movie so much. So I ended up doing something that I try to avoid doing in the sense of when I'm making these videos, because I don't want other people's opinions to kind of thwart my review and thoughts on things. But I decided to actually do a little research into why people hated it so much. And one of the videos I came across was from For Harriet, shout out. That's a really cool commentary channel. She released a video around the time the movie came out and essentially deemed it as the worst Tyler Perry movie ever. And I'm presuming this is before A Fall from Grace came out, because there's no damn way that when A Fall from Grace out, you thought, girl, child. Anyway, I was like, okay, great. This is someone who's willing to deem it as the worst thing to come from Tyler Perry. I'm curious why. And from what I garnered from their video, as well as like the comments in that video, more so even than just the video, was this kind of frustration around Tyler Perry and his propensity to caricaturize angry black women, TM. That trope of the angry black woman and the caricature of that angry black woman, as well as sort of the trope of like taking on black men as construction projects, as like something to build up,
exactly,
and to bring into fruition.
She had her life together. She just took this BB
Black men have to be waited on and be patient for, and that is the primary goal of a woman. And I see where that criticism comes from. I do, especially in this grand scope of, again, Tyler Perry's propensity to making films like that. However, whether he meant to or not, that is not at all what I got from this specific film. And again, I don't know, maybe I'm giving Tyler Perry too much credit. At least from this particular film, that is not quite the narrative I garnered from it. Quite the opposite, really. As an audience who tends to be largely black, if you're watching Tyler Perry, I don't know a whole lot of non-black people that are watching a bunch of Tyler Perry. I think that we, as a black audience, will kind of project that view onto this film because it's easy to do so. Whereas I think this movie is actually suggesting, again, possibly inadvertently, something a lot more subtle than black women be angry and black men need to be waited on until they reach fruition, until they've incubated into themselves and been coddled into themselves enough to come out of this cocoon as a fully realized, successful man, right? Whereas how I watched the film, I thought of it less about angry black woman, the TM, the trademark, the idea of the angry black woman as a phenomenon, and ultimately as a stereotype. Instead, I thought of it more so as a singular woman who is black and angry, which is a nuanced but subtle difference. I don't think of it as
settling for the construction piece of a black man, but instead that people are under construction and that may or may not be finished at any point, right? It becomes less about those things, maybe not entirely independent of them, but less about those things, and more so this film is a culmination of choices. And I think that's the more interesting and nuanced topic there. Based off of the information that they have, and based off of the ideas and the fears and the insecurities and the aspirations that each of them have together and separately, they make choices. And those choices have to work into this grandiose idea of life, of fate, and the unknown. That ultimately,
Tyler
I know
Perry tried to
really
make us
sitting
feel
there like,
sorry for the man.
really doing this for Tyler Perry? Yes, I am. I'm really doing this for Tyler Perry. And so, all of that reaches this grand climax where at the core, no one's good or bad. They are the very distillation of those choices that leads them to this fateful night on the boat. I feel like, compared to other Tyler Perry works, i.e., Diary of a Mad Black Woman, like there is this focus on this is what a mad black woman is like. Less focal than, say, that movie. This movie is more so less focused on their blackness and just coincidentally, because it's made by Tyler Perry, played by black people. I think what's really fascinating, again, I don't know if Tyler Perry tried to do this. Again, maybe giving him way too much credit, or this could be just like a spark of accidental genius, but I think the movie ultimately becomes more of a commentary on anger itself as opposed to the angry black woman, right? And what I find fascinating about this film, that we follow a woman who's angry, and we follow her over the course of 20 years, that ultimately leads her to this anger. Because you gotta wonder, a person who's so angry, you gotta ask why. Like, what happened?
They didn't give us
an
explanation.
Follow her on that course of the sending anger for 20 years, the deep-seated resentment that sets in, and the scenarios that continue to make that set in, and the choices made that were fueled by that anger and resentment and mistrust and all those emotions. Ultimately, by the end of the movie, you get this sort of cautionary tale of what happens when you let that anger fester. What happens when you let that anger destroy you and possibly everyone around you. So, again, I don't know if Tyler Perry was trying to do that. I think it's quite the conversation piece. And let's be fair, how often is something from Tyler Perry fodder for, like, thoughtful conversation on human behavior? Like, not at all. Don't get me wrong, this movie is not perfect by any means, especially execution-wise. There's some mess going on with green screen. There's also an almost supernatural element that came out of nowhere. I was like, what? I think it has something, right? Which is saying a lot, again, for a Tyler Perry film, because most things from Tyler Perry have very, very, very little. So, without further ado, this is Tyler Perry's 2018 drama, Acrimony. So one thing that I would like to applaud this movie for, right off the bat, is that it's one of the rare movies from Tyler Perry that doesn't have a cameo from Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry has a tendency to not let an entire movie go without him showing up in some way. And in the context of a movie like this, that theoretically is supposed to be taken quite seriously, it ends up being this sort of like Where's Waldo memification of whatever movie he's in, because it's like, there he is. Again, his fucking inflated ego is so large that he just has to get dressed up and be somebody in this movie. And so because he's not there, it lends to a more immersive situation, because you're not being pulled out, the fourth wall isn't being broken, and you're like, here he is again. But the film opens, and we swiftly meet our main character, played by Taraji P. Henson. Her name is Melinda. Melinda is a woman, presumably maybe in her early to mid-40s. Melinda is there being sentenced to anger management because she's been harassing someone. We then see the title screen, Acrimony, in which it actually shows the definition for acrimony, meaning like a deep bitterness, anger, resentment, etc. Actually is the first of several sort of key term cards throughout the entire movie, and some people didn't like them. I personally really did. They felt like a placeholder or kind of a chapter marker of Melinda's descent into madness throughout the movie, but apparently I'm in the minority. but okay. But we end up seeing one of the first shots, which is Melinda in her counseling session for anger management. Though, again, this quality doesn't stay necessarily in every single shot throughout the movie, but this particularly, this beautiful wide angle shot that slowly pans in, so good. And this scene is so important for a few reasons. One, of course, it establishes that she is the angry one, right? Which we could have. Two, it shows that she feels a particular entitlement to the level of anger she feels.
Do you feel that you're entitled to this anger?
Hell yeah, it's an emotion.
If I'm entitled to being hungry.
Three, that the anger that she feels is so righteous that it can't be extinguished by anything that her wrongdoers have done. Peak of her anger, that nothing can really stop her from being angry.
It's not me, that son of a bitch owes me. You think he owes you? Every damn breath in his body.
In the context, again, of other Tyler Perry films, this may make you think, like, wow, here's another very, 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 very angry black woman again. Like, here we go again. But I think what makes this movie a little bit more, I don't know, self-aware, is that the word choice I want to use? Is that it does explicitly, from the jump, bring up the frustrations that character feels, and that she feels as though she's playing into a stereotype of this big thematic idea and stereotype of the angry black woman.
Every time a black woman gets mad, she's a stereotype. Don't tell me I don't have a right to be angry.
So in a way, from the gate, the movie insists that this is not a conversation about big idea, big world black woman anger. This is a woman who is angry and happens to be black. And I find it a little frustrating that even in the context of displaying black women's anger, it has to be seen as the stereotype of angry black women. You get what I'm saying? It's like black women can't just be angry. It's black, angry black women stereotype. Their anger isn't allowed to be their own. It's a working mechanism cog in the stereotype of black women's anger. What I was trying to say, and I thought of the better word choice, is that essentially being angry as a black woman is in and of itself a political statement in this grandiose idea of black women anger. You can't singularly be angry. This isn't her playing into the stereotypes of angry black women. She is a woman who's been wronged and is angry as a human being because of that, and has not figured out good ways to cope with that anger. And I think that's what's really interesting, again, probably completely on accident, about the setup of the movie. Again, it's not interrogating angry black women, it's interrogating anger itself, and specifically anger that has cause and is righteous and has a place and has a purpose, and we, again, can empathize with it as we follow her story, but can also be completely and utterly all-consuming. This therapy session serves as the mechanism of how she tells her story, because her therapist is like, well, damn, why are you so angry? She says it better than that, but tell me the story. What led us here that made you this pissed all the fucking time? And so we take the journey back 20 some odd years ago when Melinda was in college, and that is where she bumped into her ex-husband. Well, she met her ex-husband, Robert. But they meet on this rainy day as she's running out of class, and she sort of, in the present, postulates on the concept of rain and water and how just strange things happen to her. Of course, it must be foreshadowing. She runs and bumps into Robert, and she has quite the bizarre sort of like off-kilter response to bumping into somebody. But in the grand scheme of things, this is kind of indicative of Melinda's character anyway. But Robert, after their scuffle, whatever, comes to her dorm room and tells her, hey, I think you got some of my papers when we bumped into each other. And she's like really mean and rude to him. And we're swiftly introduced to kind of their dichotomic interactions, right? She's very gruff and angry and rude and aggressive, and he's this like soft, mild-mannered person, which at first was annoying, but then as the kind of events unfold, I actually found that quite interesting, particularly Robert, in the sense that he is this very like soft and gentle person, but he ends up being the worst the whole movie. It is not that he just suddenly turns into this very aggressive monster. He's still this kind of like soft and gentle. It's like, you
you should be there for me person, but he's the fucking worst. And I actually really liked it. That was quite, again, quite subtle and nuanced. And anywho, so Robert is studying to be an engineer, a mechanical engineer more specifically. And they start hanging out, they starting to like each other, and he lets her know that he is trying to create something. He wants to create a battery that will, save energy, help the environment, and hopefully make him very, very rich. And she's like, man, that's so cool. Follow your dreams. Love that. One day, while at school, Melinda's sisters come to the school to let her know that their mother had passed. Robert comes to the wake to make sure that she's okay and everything. While there, she ends up driving him back to his home, which is actually an RV. Basically, his mother had passed and his father was in prison. Anyway, a lot of family stuff that resulted in him living alone in this trailer. What ultimately ends up happening is they end up having sex that day. Now, here's the thing. Some people were really like, why are you having sex? Like, why is that important? But grief is a very weird emotion. So anything, I used to judge people about what they do when aggrieved. And I'm like, not anymore. Not anymore. Grief is a weird time. So that isn't even weird to me that she had sex with him. It really isn't. But what I do find very interesting in the context of this movie is that even the voiceover kind of acknowledges this sequence of events, right? She kind of chastises herself and chastises him for taking advantage of her in this context. Like, he knew she was vulnerable. Her mom had literally just died. My mother wasn't even cold in the ground yet. There I was. What kind of man takes advantage of a girl's grief, huh? Which, again, I think is more indicative to him being this kind of quiet danger, if that makes sense. He is, I think, a more realistic villain, if that's what I want to call him. As the movie goes on, it's hard to call either of them villain or hero because there's this idea that one is good and one bad. But the film, through Melinda, even acknowledges how predatory this is. It was an icky thing for him to do. This quiet user, that's kind of what you get the sense of throughout the movie, or at least particularly the first half of it. Speaking of him being a user, Melinda's sisters pick up on it very quickly. One is a bit more aggressive about it. She's like, who are you? What are you? What do you want? Like, you feel like some bullshit. But they're particularly concerned as they start to date because afraid that he's going to take advantage of the fact that Melinda was left, I think it was $300,000 or $350,000 when the mom passed, as well as the family house. So they're like, don't tell him you have this money. Don't tell him you have this house. He's going to take advantage of you. But she's young and in love, so what does she do?
She
Tell
tells
him
him.
about the house and the money. Robert tells Melinda of his dreams of working for a company called Prescott Industries, which essentially buys new technology. He's trying to get his batteries seen by Prescott, and he basically tells Melinda, like, once my battery takes off, we're gonna have it all. We're gonna have a private jet.
You can have it for right now.
These high-rise buildings. I'm gonna give you a boat and call it the Miss Gale, which is his last name, and that was his way of essentially saying, I want to marry you. And again, in a way that I find incredibly skillful. Again, Robert isn't an overtly abusive person. He's not yelling and screaming or hitting her or anything like that. Is abusive in the right word? He's a manipulative person, that's the word, where he'll just kind of suggest things and be like, man, I could really use a car, dog. What if I need to go to Prescott and I gotta wait for the bus? Oh no.
And go work for the bus.
And then what does she do? She buys him a car, so there goes some of the money that she was left. And after buying this car, he seems to grow distant. Like, he won't call her, he'll only talk to her if she calls him. And so one day she got suspicious, and so she calls him, and he kind of treats her like a buddy. He's like, hey, pal. And she's like, pardon? And so she, with her intuition, drives over to his home, his mobile home. And she sits there and stokes it out, only to realize that he is indeed with another girl. He's cheating on her. In a fit of unbridled rage, Melinda drives her truck into the RV, hitting it twice and toppling it over. Robert and the girl, her name is Diana, I think, come out
out of the RV, and Melinda is still raging. She takes a cinder block, throws it through the window of the car that she bought. Girl, that's your car. Sorry. There is no... Sometimes you just gotta say, well, I'm single then. Can I just do a little PSA side note? Don't ever let anybody, especially a man, get you this angry. Once she gets out of her car, she passes out because she actually got internal bleeding from the crash and hit the steering wheel so hard against her abdomen that it ended up rupturing her ovaries. She had to get a full hysterectomy and now can't have kids because she couldn't just say, well, that nigga, and left. She got so mad that she had internal bleeding and now can't have kids. But does she leave him?
No.
Of course not. The movie's not over. He goes to the hospital. Her sister, one of her sister in particular, cusses him out because he deserves it. And after she's out of surgery, they talk to her about her anger.
I'm just going to finish with
Melinda
one
has struggled with anger her entire life,
And they allude throughout the movie
Just
that
if
it
it's-
might be, something
So I'm
that
just
she
gonna
got, from her
finish
daddy.
one.
He used to go into rages and stuff. She gets so mad that she can't even see straight, and she does destructive and horrible things. And now it's resulted in something that she can't take back. You know what I mean? She can't change the events of what happened. She now will never be able to have kids, and it was something that she had, vocalized earlier that was an aspiration for her and Robert when they get married.
Robert comes to boo-hoo, tell you, baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean, I love you so much, please take me back, baby, please. And what does she do? She takes him back. I'm sorry, I don't know, I've never been in love, so I don't want to speak on what I would and wouldn't do. I'm gonna just say I would be fucking surprised if I did this, and if I did, somebody sit me down. Now, during a particularly badly filmed scene, Bench was in the wrong direction, not even facing the water. Anyway, Robert tells her that he had lost his scholarship and that he wouldn't be able to pay for college, and he doesn't know what he's gonna do. I don't have $73,000.
Student loans.
So what does she do? She pays for his last 2 semesters of school. And after she's done held him down, yada yada yada, blah blah blah, he finally proposes with a bubblegum ring, and he promises her that he's gonna create a new ring once he has money and he's able to put her in the skyrise apartment and private jet and then yada 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 once his battery takes off and yahoo. And so she tells her sisters, hey, I'm about to get married. And they're like, this is a horrible idea. And if you're gonna marry this man who cheated on you, taking all your money and using you and yada yada yada, if you're gonna marry this person, I'm not going to the wedding. And so they don't go to the wedding because they're all by herself getting married. The only person that was kind of there for her was her friend. I don't even know if they even named her. So time starts to pass, and slowly but surely, Melinda ends up using all of that money that her mother left her on parts for his battery, the bills, keeping him afloat, trying to keep their house afloat. Meanwhile, he's a full-time student and doing his little battery or whatever and not bringing in any money. So she takes up 2 jobs so that she can support them while he continues to do school and finish his battery. Cool,
And then
great,
guess what
whatever.
happens
So
after?
he finally graduates. Melinda is so relieved because she's like, oh my god, thank God he's graduating. He already has 3 job offers right out of college. So finally, I will stop having to work and slave so hard. Again, I can imagine just grows in resentment. But lo and behold, all 3 turn him down because he's actually a felon. And he didn't tell Melinda. So when he was 15, he was in a gang and he robbed a bank with that gang, and he was sentenced as an adult for 2 years in prison, or juvie or whatever. And he thought it would be expunged from his record, but nope, it's still there.
It's supposed to be expunged because
didn't want to hire him. So it's back to him
that's supposed
not
to be
working,
saved.
but working on his battery, and her working, doing various odd jobs to keep them afloat. So I'm a Capricorn, gang. So the quickest way to piss me off is to piss me off in regards to money. How did you mess up the fundamentals of how we live so badly? I'd have to kill him. Again, I've said this, he would have to die. Me personally, I would have never married him because if you cheat on me, that's enough to tell me that you don't make good decisions anyway. There's an impulsivity. Even if you didn't want to cheat on me, you just said, hey, it was there and I took it, and I just slipped and fell in a pussy. Even if that were the case, you just make bad decisions, and I don't want to be married to that. So I would have broke up with him. Now he's out of school, no job prospects, and they're in a hole. So now he's just really banking on that Prescott thing. He's like, it's okay, baby. We're gonna make it. I'm gonna give you the house and the skylines and the hills. You gotta believe the dream, honey. Hey. But in the meantime, because they have so many money issues, Melinda makes the very, very difficult decision to mortgage their home.
And he was so happy that
Mother's home that
pissed
she
me off.
worked so hard to pay for. So years begin to pass. Melinda starts to remark about how they just kind of float around each other. There's nothing to mark the passage of time because they don't have kids. Moments of their first birthdays and them graduating and all those things that kind of pinpoint the passage of time. They just kind of drift around each other for like 18 years. His battery still hasn't hit, so they still have no money, and she ends up like working an office job. All these years, Robert has continuously been trying to contact the people at Prescott to get them to hear about his damn battery, which at this point is like 20 years old technology. Do they give a fuck anymore? I'm sure somebody's made something similar or better. One day, while again trying to get the attention of Prescott, he ends up in front of the building where he sees Diana, the girl that, I think that's her name, Diana, the chick that he had sex with in the beginning of the movie that he cheated on his now wife with, right? And apparently now, serendipitously, she's a big executive at Prescott. They schmooze a little bit about old times, particularly that night where she almost died in his RV because he had a girlfriend. He kind of asked for her to put a good word in for him and his damn battery. She's like, no. But ultimately gets beaten down, and she's like, sure, I can see what I can do. We can go for coffee or something, right? Completely platonic, nothing sexual by any means. Sure, we can talk, whatever. But that day, he actually gets a call from the security manager at Prescott, who's like, we have filed you as a credible threat all these years. You keep sending all these damn letters to look at your damn battery. And
Nobody
we
wants a
told
damn
you
battery.
over and over again, that's not how this works. It's through a raffle. You can't browbeat us into looking at your freaking stuff. You're now on the credible threat list. Don't come to the building. Don't come talking to the people here. Don't call us. Don't send no letters. Bye. Robert blows a gasket. This was his final chance for success, and they have officially said, if you come here again, you're going to have problems. And so he gets mad, throws the table, has a fit, hyperventilates essentially, and here comes his very exhausted and tired wife, Melinda, who says, you say you want all this for me, you want these planes, and you want these trains, and you want these buildings, and the high rises, and the boat, and yada yada. Have you ever asked what I want? All I want you to do is get a job. Leave this damn battery alone. Get over this damn battery and help me pay some bills. Okay? We're doing rough out here. He's like, fine, I'll get a job. 20 years of no job, him working on his damn battery. He's like, sure, I'll get a job. Being that he does have a felony record, it is hard for him to get work, but he wasn't even trying to do anything. Now, the nosy sisters find out that the house is getting foreclosed on, and they're like, look, this was our mom's house. Do you know how hard our parents worked for this house? It was paid off. Like, what the hell was happening? Here's the thing. If he needs a job, fine. He can work this delivery job that they have like a delivery company now. He can work this delivery job, and we had to get an advance on this job so that you can get paid so that we can help you with this damn house. But look, we can't miss any freaking shipments because they'll take our trucks away. They'll take everything away because we're taking out essentially a giant loan to help y'all. So you have to do this job and don't mess it up, dog. Seriously. He's like, fine, I'll do it. But as he's getting like chastised by the whole family, by her whole side of the family at the end of it, instead of realizing you put us in this predicament, he plays victim and he's like, well, why didn't you defend me? They end up in this fight that makes them kind of draw apart because he's like, she should have defended me. He kind of ices her out. He starts to sleep on the couch, yada, yada, yada. And Melinda starts to wonder if he's cheating on her because he's so withdrawn and they haven't had sex in a very long time. You know, time passes or whatever. So while this fight is happening, the executive woman that he bumped into before, the one that he once cheated with, she's looking at his videos. Over the years, he had perfected this battery, and he was just trying to get Prescott to, you know, actually look at it. So one day, while doing one of the incredibly important shipments, he gets a call from Diana, that lady, and she's like, I've convinced Prescott to see you. You have to come in today at 11:30. Now, he's in the middle of his job, again, the very important run that he has to do. Keep in mind, if he screws this up, it doesn't just screw up for him, it screws
But
up
for
for
him,
the entire side of her
the
family.
important part is for him to be the head of the
Okay, yeah,
thing.
I'm going to go to Prescott. So what does he do? He foregoes, again, this very, very important shipment, go home, get in a suit, get his battery that he had thrown away. The brothers notice that the car is changing course because they have a tracker in it, and they're like, he's going back home? Why is he going back home? And then one of the sisters finds Diana lady's wallet in one of the cars because she had left it on probably one of the days that they went to get coffee to talk about his dreams and aspirations or whatever. And so they go to tell Melinda, hey, we found this in Odu's car. He's cheating on you. So the brothers-in-law, they come and they're like, you almost screwed up our whole business. And they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? Take the keys and go to make this in shipment. In the meantime, Melinda gets home and she's like, what was this wallet doing in your car? He tries to explain everything. He's like, I don't have time to explain. I gotta go to Prescott. And she's like, where the hell are you going? There's a scuffle. The sister thinks that he's trying to hit her, and it's not that. She takes his keys, so he can't go via the car, so he goes on the bus, and he starts to freak out because of the event that just happened. And Diana is there like, you look like shit. What is going on? And basically he tells her that his wife thought that they were cheating with each other because she dropped her wallet in there, and she's like, crap. But before they have time to really talk about that, she's like, this is the meeting of your lifetime. You can do this. I believe in you, black man. Like, after 20 years of research, they offer him a whopping $800,000, which to me is not enough money. Not that it's anything to scoff at, considering how long he'd been working on this and how much he thinks it's so valuable. And you get less than $1 million for that? Absolutely not. But given his context and his circumstances, about to get foreclosed, he finally gets in there after 20 years of research. All these things. I understand the pressure, right? And honestly, if I were in that circumstance, I would take it for the betterment of my family. However, he's like, nah. And so he leaves. So now, let me remind you that everybody's the sisters and their husbands, his wife, the house is going to be gone. Now he presumably was just hanging out with the woman that he cheated on her with 20 years ago. And this is just all too much. So when he goes home and he explains, this is why I wasn't doing anything with her. She's an executive at Prescott. I was really just trying to get seen. And they offered me $800,000. Not a particular file on my video going corrupted, so I have to fill this in with voiceover. It's fine. It's cool. You'll see my pretty face again. So Robert goes to Melinda and tells her that though they are about to get foreclosed on and that he's about to run out of all opportunities to save their house and their lives and livelihoods, he said, I said it wasn't a good offer, so I didn't take it. And so after these compiling agitations and frustrations and infuriating circumstances and possibly him cheating on her, she doesn't know, she finally reaches her breaking point and says, I want a divorce. The house is foreclosed on 3 months later, and Belinda moves into her sister's house, something that greatly embarrasses her as she's now in her 40s. Meanwhile, Robert is staying at a men's shelter. Belinda starts seeing the boyfriend that she had before she started dating Robert, a man named Devin, who is also recently divorced. And one day while they're at dinner, Melinda notices that Robert is actually working in the kitchen, and she's infuriated at the thought of all the promises he told her about how they were going to live in, these high-rise mansions, and they're going to make it, and they're going to have all this money, and they're going to live this dream. And here he was working in the kitchen, and she just grew more and more angry at the thought of it. She remarks to herself about how she would never feel repaid unless he paid her back $1.2 million, the amount of money that she calculated is what she spent over the course of their relationship, investing in him and paying off the bills as they live together. At their divorce hearing, he gives a speech about how he loves her and always has, and that he's always going to love her. Also, how he did not cheat on her during their marriage, but ultimately they both signed the papers and they are now officially divorced. In comes the title screen for the next part of the film called Sunder, meaning to split, separate, or divide. And this is the chapter on their separate lives. Robert ends up being kind of adopted for all intents and purposes by the Diana lady, and she works to sort of heal his wounded ego.
I don't
Some people
know why.
just don't see your vision, and I can understand how this part could come off as if we're like stroking the bum ego that I heard some people kind of voicing frustrations about. But I don't think that's what this is. It's just like with the information that she had, with the experiences she had with him, it's easy for her to say how wonderful he is, right? She hasn't been living with him for the last 20 years. Again, it's another situation where people are working off of the information that they have and they're doing things accordingly. And him believing in his mind that he did the right thing latches on to this encouragement. One day, after over 20 years of trying to get Prescott to actually see his vision, they decide to offer him $150 million for his battery. Robert has finally made it. And then, in an effort to make amends with Melinda, he goes to her job dressed in a suit with flowers. She insists that if you're here to try to get me back, I don't want you. We're never getting back together. Please leave me alone. But he's not there to get back together. He's there to thank her, apologize to her, and to offer her $10 million and the deed to her mother's home back. And this scene, I think, is very pivotal in the trajectory of the narrative and the moral of the story, right? I think a lot of people internalize this as like, we're supposed to feel sympathetic for Robert.
Yeah.
We're supposed to feel happy for Robert or any of his emotions. And sure, you could feel those things. But I think what's more important, as opposed to Robert, him being a more sympathetic or not sympathetic character, is how Melinda goes from here, right? She says that she doesn't want to be back with him. She just wants her $1.2 million. So now she's gotten over, what is math? 9.2, 9.8, 8.8 $1 million more than she thought that she deserved before. She has the deed to her house back. She's not with Robert anymore. Presumably, these are all the things that she said she wanted, and more so. And theoretically, in some way, this is best case scenario, no? He's still trash. I feel like even if he wasn't cheating on her, he was willing to let his wife go through all that to support his dream that we didn't know was going to come through. Melinda didn't know. Probably he didn't know was going to come through, right? So this is the best case scenario. He got money. You don't have to be married to him anymore. He gave you the money. You guys are on relatively good terms. Theoretically, this is where the movie should end. But
I'll be
it's
back.
a movie about anger. It's a movie about resentment. And just because
And
itself.
the
Anger
back.
can be so greedy and insidious,
Well,
as it does
was
Melinda
almost
throughout
done
the rest
this
of this
one.
movie.
It
It
took me
completely
long.
obscures her ability to recognize that, again, theoretically, this is best case scenario. You should just kind of count your losses as far as, like, losing a relationship with a person that kind of wasn't great anyway. You made money from it and go about your life. And what we'll see as the last few parts of this movie go on is that anger has completely made her unable to be able to see that, and instead just pushes her over to the edge and builds upon itself, compiles upon itself all of this like festered anger, undealt with anger. We enter into chapter 3, which is Bewail, which is the chapter on regret, disappointment, and bitterness. Melinda, after hearing that his battery hit, is immediately regretful and remorseful and angry, and she takes this out on her sisters, who were only trying to do what was best based off of the information that they had, right? He wasn't treating her well, and that didn't change. He still was not treating her well, but now it paid off, and she wished she wouldn't have listened to her sisters. So she goes off on them, curses at them, says that their husbands are cheating on them, and has this very bitter and regretful and resentful outburst. And then afterwards, she goes to Robert's penthouse, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is everything you said it would be, and I'm so happy for us. We can finally have that life that you said that you saw for us." She goes there to seduce him, only to realize that he is now engaged with the CEO woman, and she starts to resent that this woman will now live the life that she was always promised. Which, again, you just got $10 million. Buy it yourself. Just let it go. Instead of relishing in this new life that she can create with herself, again, with $10 million, you can do something. She moves back into her mother's house, doesn't furnish it, and becomes obsessed with their relationship. Because now this woman is essentially living the life that she always thought she was deserving of. They're going on trips to Paris like he promised her. They have private jets like she was promised. They get the boat, call it the Mrs. Gale, but it's not her. Sucks! Don't get me wrong, I can see why it sucks. I can empathize with the pain, because that sucks, but also $10 million, buy your own damn boat. Combination of negative emotions, this resentment, this anger, this jealousy, starts to send her into a spiral. She starts to drink more, she starts to create fake accounts where she's just harassing the new Mrs. Gale, or the soon-to-be Mrs. Gale. And while this is happening, she's just isolating herself more and more and more, and her sisters get really worried. They find photos of the new woman with knives stabbed in her face. They're like, she's having a breakdown. Melinda tries to sue Robert for more of the money from his invention of the batteries, essentially stating that she's the reason why he had the resources to research this battery. She supported him. The judge says, well, he made this money after you were divorced, and two, even if it was based off of your investment of what you calculated to be $1.2 million, he gave you $10 million.
He created the battery
just without being asked to do so. He repaid you and then some. So no, bye, let it go. Let it go, essentially. But Melinda can't let go. She has this moment after the court hearing that's not the best well done. So there's an element about it that's very disturbing, but also kind of hilarious. Yeah, they could have did that scene better, where she live streams how she's being taken advantage of by these people. Created such a deep injustice towards her, and yada yada. And it's really getting to a head, and her sisters basically say, we gotta get her some help. And Robert, please be on board with us to do that. You may want to consider getting some security for your wedding, because she's losing her mind. Melinda ends up coming home while Robert is being talked to by the sisters, and the new fiance is there as well.
Oh, sure.
And has a breakdown. She was pissed. And that was a pretty good scene. I feel like people undermine, on a side note, that, again, there are moments where Taraji goes a little overboard, but it is melodrama, and she's at this high-frequency anger the entire movie. She has this breakdown, and she's like, why would you bring her here? What's wrong with y'all? What type of family are y'all? Why would you let him bring her here? So disrespectful. What kind of family are you? And I was like, damn, I actually felt that.
again, obsessed with their relationship, had reserved the wedding dress that she had always wanted for her wedding. She pours acid on the clothes and is brought back into court. If anything's fake about this movie is that they didn't send her ass to jail immediately. She's a black woman and possibly mentally ill. There ain't no way in hell they would have put her ass in jail already. You are harassing this couple. The fiance is like, well, I mean, it works out because I couldn't fit it anyway because I'm pregnant.
It's okay, Your Honor. I couldn't fit the dress anymore anyway. This little one's growing pretty fast.
Which is like the final straw for Melinda, because if you recall, she can't have kids. She had a hysterectomy. And they were like, you need to go to counseling. You need to get some help for your anger. Hence the return to the beginning of the movie, her in counseling with a therapist, now having told the entire story of why she's so angry. The therapist says something along the lines of, have you ever considered that he was being honest?
Would you feel better if he was really being honest? He really meant well.
If you found out that he was operating out of the purest intentions, like he wasn't trying to be awful, he just was, but he was genuinely trying to be a decent person, but just failed at being so, would you be able to let it go? And instead of internalizing it as that question, or even considering it in that way, she shuns the idea and digs her heels and says, I am not wrong. I am not wrong for being angry, which is a different argument. She internalizes it as you don't have a right to be angry, as opposed to you completely have the right to be angry. It's understandable that you're angry. What's the problem here? That you're letting it lead to your detriment. That's a better interaction that I think there's so much I think in this movie that's better than gets credit for, if that makes sense. And there's another line earlier that also alludes to this, where she says, I would burn a house down just to take other people with me. That's how angry I get. And that's a very powerful concept, right? Then this happens where the counselor essentially alludes to, have you considered or have you heard of something called borderline personality disorder? Which, if you follow my other videos in this series that I do here, I have talked about how I get greatly uncomfortable when mental health is brought up to some degree in movies like this. The core conundrum I have, and the kind of thorny moral question of how mental health is represented in film particularly, is that it is disproportionately representative in murderers, criminals, stuff like that, as opposed to balanced out with other narratives of people just suffering from mental health issues, right? And that doesn't necessarily result in them being criminals or violent or dangerous. And the thing I've always said is that you have to have something wrong with you to do certain things. You have to have something not all there to make a lampshade out of skin and deep. There's something off. You're not all okay up there to do that. But not everyone that's not okay up there is making lamps out of skin. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So at first I was quite uncomfortable with explicitly trying to diagnose her. But as the scene continued, I realized that this is actually quite, again, a very nuanced scene. Really brings to a head kind of the warnings everyone has tried to give Melinda through the entire movie. She's in a place to get help for her anger, for her outbursts, for her negative spiraling emotions, and she's giving a possible reason for why she's having a lot of trouble to regulate her emotions, right? In a way that's kind of shown as her folly throughout this entire movie. She completely rejects the notion of needing help for anything, which I thought was really interesting, because if you recall, again, throughout the entire movie, it's alluded to her always being a very angry person. Before she met Robert, even as a child, she would have these outbursts, right? And then her sisters were like, you get so angry and you can't even see straight. You get so mad and you want to burn the house down with you in it. There's this cycle of people saying, hey, you need help, please get some help, please get some help, please get some help. And ultimately what is the final straw is that she's given this opportunity to help herself, and she actively and explicitly rejects it. Yeah, she's crazy because she's had borderline personality personality disorder. It's less about that. It's like she's a person who has an issue and is actively ignoring treatment as this is coming to a head, right? Better done than say, like, the roommate, like, yeah, she's trying to kill people because she's crazy. Like, no, this is someone who has a problem and has been ill for presumably her entire life, and we're finally coming to an understanding of that. We're also there in this kind of like Greek tragedy type way. You're just trying to call me crazy, and she walked out. I thought it was a pretty good scene, actually. Robert goes on to marry the woman. They end up getting the boat, calling it the Mrs. Gale. She ends up being given the ring that Robert said that he would give to Melinda if he finally made it. You know, he gave her a little bubblegum ring, but he said, "Yeah, I'll give you the ring with these diamonds." Whatever. And Melinda is just in her festering anger, and her siblings and their husbands are outside trying to keep her inside the house because she needs an intervention. And again, you got $10 million, right? She has $10 million. If she want to go and buy a boat, she can buy a boat. She can go to Paris. She can buy her own damn ring. But no, she's in this anger so deeply. She ends up jumping out of a window and sneaking out of the house. That leads into our last chapter, which is the one on inexorable, apparently. Okay. Meaning unforgiving, relentless, inflexible. And this is the final scene on the boat. So the newlyweds are on their honeymoon. They're on this boat. They're just looking at the stars, enjoying their time. Not the best CGI, by the way, but new wife goes down into the cabin where she's gonna run a bubble bath and call for him later. And here comes Melinda, who has stolen her wedding dress and is currently wearing it. She has a gun and she's threatening to kill Robert. With a gun pointed to his face, he insists that he never cheated on Melinda and that he's always loved her, that he didn't do this thing that she says that he did. And she says, well, if that's the case, tell that bitch to jump off and we can live the life that we were always meant to live, right? Before I get started on the rundown of the scene, I think this is where people give it its most criticism, because this scene is kind of a mess. It's admittedly a mess. The execution wasn't great, but I get what they were getting at, right? There are some elements that feel very, like, melodramatic to the extent of, like, almost caricature-esque, even, of other thrillers, if that makes sense. So I get it. It's not the best scene in the world. She ends up shooting him, either on accident or just, like, I don't know. She seems surprised that she did it, so she's like, oh my god. She shoots him in the stomach, and the crew comes out, and she tells them all to jump overboard. That shit was funny. Something about how they were screaming, like, ah! And the wife comes up to see what's going on, and she sees that Melinda's there with a gun, so she's trying to run away very, very slow. And Melinda's like, stop moving, bitch. Give me my ring. The ring that she always wanted. And while she's holding the gun at her, Robert uses his last strength to yeet her off the boat. And in quite the meme fashion, she materializes back on the boat. It's all your fault, Robert. A mess. That was a mess. It was a mess. I didn't say the movie's perfect, okay? I said it has its moments, is what I said. So she materializes very supernatural onto the boat. Oh, but before that happens, Robert's telling the new wife, like, hey, get on that tugboat, find the crew. I'm bleeding out. Get help. I'm about to die. So she goes off into a little tugboat to find the crew who's in dark water. They dead already now, sis. If they not dead, they done swam somewhere. Melinda finds an axe hitting his leg, but in horrible CGI, and her leg gets caught in the anchor, dragged down by a chain in water. Remember the reference of crazy stuff always.
Welcome.
To me in water. She also referenced rain throughout the movie as well. She's literally drugged down by the results of her own anger. The new wife found that crew, and they're not at all wet, and they're not at all like going back on that boat. I don't get paid enough for this, but she brings them back, and they find Robert either unconscious or dead. I have no idea. And then the credits roll, and that's the end of the movie. Now, I can understand why people don't like this movie. I would preface my ending comments to that. I understand if you don't like this movie. I understand why you don't. Because there, again, are some quality issues. The weird green screen sometimes is off-putting. The ending scene, just execution-wise, is a mess. And, of course, again, there are some recycling of trite tropes of the angry black woman drama and the patience and coddling needed to actualize the potential of black men. But again, I just feel like there's so much more to this movie than that. I think the most fascinating thing about this movie is that there there isn't really a villain, and there really isn't a hero either. I think between the two, if there's like a scale or a spectrum, Robert is certainly more of the villain here. I definitely think he's more of the villain here throughout the movie, but less than this kind of very stagnant dichotomy between the hero and the villain. I think what's more fascinating is that neither of them are right or wrong in certain contexts. They're just people going off of the information that they think that they have and the decisions that they think are best, and they do and don't play out. And at that point, all that we're left with are our choices and the consequences of those choices. They all could have done things differently, right? He could have not cheated on her in the beginning, which means that she wouldn't think he'll cheat on her in the future. Maybe would have believed him more when he said that he didn't cheat on her and that we don't have to get divorced. Or she could have just stopped being with him when he cheated on her the first time. Or when he did cheat on her, she didn't have to drive her truck into there. He could have told her he was a felon, and maybe she wouldn't have married him. And maybe he could have got a job, anything, and just focused more on that as opposed to the battery. All of these things that they could have, should have, would have, whatever done. Like, was Melinda wrong for being angry that he wasn't working when she's about to lose her mother's house?
Hell yeah.
No. But was she wrong for holding on to her resentment to the extent that it ruined her ability to see that she has the potential to have a completely different life now, and one that could be even more fulfilling than being married to him? Was he wrong for relishing in his hard work, you know? No. But was he wrong for putting that much stress onto his wife the entire time they were married?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, he was. I think this movie, more than anything, is a cautionary tale on how we deal with anger, how we deal with resentment, how that can take us on a tailspin when that isn't necessarily where this has to go. You know what I mean? Again, as an audience, we're seeing him do all this, right? We understand and empathize with why you're angry, because I would be too. We understand that she's angry, but the problem is there's still a responsibility to not be as destructive as she was with that anger, especially because, again, she was kind of restored in all the ways that she said that she had lost things, right? She got her house back, she made $10 million, she's not married to his annoying ass no more. I mean, she still loved him, so I guess to her degree,
it's really
like,
hard
she
to
was
engage.
old. That was the final thing
But
that I could not restore.
she should have
could
looked
not
good.
let that go, right? And it ended up being her downfall and possibly his. We don't know if he survived or not. I think what's interesting is that there are no real good people in this movie per se, and there's no
Her sister is good.
really, well, Robert's pretty trash. I was gonna say he's more trash than he isn't. You know what I mean? But that dichotomy is almost a non-factor. It's almost not as interesting, I think what's more interesting is the idea of two people living their lives based off of the information that they feel like they have and making choices off of that information while walking into the unknown. That while making those choices, things may not turn out the way that you thought it would. And it's a cautionary tale of that if that were to happen, don't lose yourself. Don't let it consume you and be to your detriment. Also in conversation with why this movie I find is quintessentially better than other works that Tyler Perry has done. Because again, he has scrutinized Black women anger before, but I find it refreshing to some degree that he decided to take away the prospect of that being healed by another man. Like, I just found a better man, I found a light-skinned Black man just to take away the pain that this dark-skinned Black man made, and instead the cure for that, quote-unquote, or the accountability for that, the resolution for that, the healing from that is all within oneself by proxy, so too is the destruction from that. So yes, there it is, that's my stance. I like this movie. But I'll also say this, I have no interest in trying to convince you to like the movie. That's not why I made this video. I'm just saying, I think there's more to it. I don't know, maybe if you watch the movie after this and kind of think of it in that way, you might find more enjoyment in it. And if not, that's also cool. It's just a movie. Chill out, sis. Some people get very, very, very impassioned about certain things. It's not good for you. It can lead to your downfall. That, my friends, is all for today, folks. If you like this video, feel free to like this video. If you have more opinions, love to hear that. What are your analyses if you've seen the movie already? Put that down in the comment section. And if you have other recommendations for bad movies, feel free to put them
down in the comment section, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Alright, I like that overlay. I might change her skin color.
To my sketchbook, and also to Skillshare for supporting today's sketchbook session. It's been a while, hasn't it? I've been in a bit of a creative block, stuck for ideas and motivation, and I thought, what better way to snap myself out of it than to, instead of trying to come up with my own idea, figure out what it is that I like about existing art and see if I can transfer some of that magic into my own art. This is such a great way to get back in the swing of making art when you're not sure what you want to paint or you're just not enjoying your usual work anymore. Not only do you get to take the pressure off of finding the right thing to work on, you just get to actively appreciate and explore someone else's art and hopefully along the way learn something about it, or in the very least just get a bit inspired. So this still life I'm painting is called A Bouquet of Flowers. It's by I think a Belgian painter called Clara Peters, and it's from around 1612. And what really drew me to this painting was the level of detail, the use of colours, and the dark background. I also really wanted to capture in my study some of the movement that the artist has been able to suggest in the way that all the flowers are positioned around each other. I tried to remember those areas of focus while I worked. I originally started out with an image in my head of how this study would turn out, but I realised pretty early on that I was a bit rusty from not having painted in several weeks, so instead of aiming for something perfectly finished and neat, I decided to keep things loose and just ease myself back into the process of painting. Also, how this painting turned out wasn't hugely important to me in the end. My main priority was just to get myself back in the habit of painting. I have felt pulled one way or another over the last few weeks with just different priorities taking up my time and attention, and it's always hard for me to justify making time for art when I'm so busy, but I really want to change that mindset and make sure that art is coming first as often as possible. I also always make the excuse to myself that I don't know what to paint, but I think doing something like this is the perfect solution for times like this. Anyway, getting my priorities in order and building good habits is a great way to segue into mentioning a Skillshare class that I took recently. I absolutely love Michelle B on YouTube. I have been watching her videos for years, but she also has a brilliant Skillshare class called Designing the Life You Want, 4 exercises for clarity and motivation, which is just what it sounds like. She gives you some really useful, actionable exercises to get clear on your values and just sort of inspire and motivate yourself to go after it and make it work. As I said, Skillshare are sponsoring today's video. They've been a consistent support for my channel, and they're a service that I've been using personally for years at this point, and I'm sure that you know by now it's an online learning community with real projects to dive into, classes on topics ranging from illustration to entrepreneurship, plus the support of fellow creatives. The catalogue of thousands of classes is constantly growing. They're always launching new premium classes, plus the platform itself is curated specifically for learning, meaning that there are no ads, which is ideal for staying focused, and all that is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. That said, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. So thanks as always to Skillshare, and let's dive back into this video. I obviously would love my days to mainly consist of making art and just exploring different ideas, learning things and experimenting, but there are always more pressing tasks to be getting on with. That said, I think I need to be a bit more protective over the slots of creative time that I have scheduled in throughout the week. I'm always at my happiest with my art when I'm creating consistently and when I'm doing a little something every day or every other day. Anyway, how are you all doing? I feel like we haven't caught up in ages. I hope you're all well and enjoying the sunnier days, maybe finding some time for your own creative hobbies too. Otherwise, that'll be all for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon for the next one. Bye.
For today, I am tired, and I think I made Swan too dark. Yeah, I made it too dark. Might change that. So here's the before, and here's the after. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Look how good this looks. Look how different it looks. Oh my gosh. Alright. So this is it for today. Let's save. And I could show you guys what I did last night in last night's stream. If you don't know, I stream on Twitch now, but I'm just testing things out. Right, I'm just testing things out, so it's not 100% yet. So I'm just thinking, wading in the water. So you see, as I do as well, I'm tired. Like, so right, I did this sticker last night. I love it. This is Rain's backpack that got an upgrade because in the book it was black and pink, I believe, and now it's pink and peach, filled with flowers. And here's the other sticker. Sticker one, sticker one, sticker one. Oh, this is my patron rewards for this month. This is her bird companion. I don't have a name for him yet. I keep saying him or her, whatever. She's gender fluid. They are gender fluid. And yeah, and it's so cute. And here's the sticker sheet, which I am so happy for. The sticker sheet. It's so rough, the sticker sheet. Right, here's the sticker sheet. I'm really happy with it. And yeah, that's the end. Wow, way tired than I thought I am. Yeah. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. I hope this makes up for no video this week. Thank you, YouTube, Warner Brothers, copyrighting my video. I understand why, but still mad about it. And then if you want to see the print, computer's like, why are you doing this to me? You know I'm slow. Did you just freeze on me? And here's print. Wait, did I put 7? And this is the print for this month. This is Rain. She's in her garden. Alright, so that's the end of today's video live stream. I might hop back on, but over on Twitch, not YouTube. And have fun. Hey, hey. Alright, bye guys.